Hello everybody and welcome to the video. In this video we're going to add in a cool feature here where the player is invulnerable and it flashes. So you'll see here the player, when we take damage, it'll flash and we can no longer take more than that one damage. So we start with 3, we flash, we're unable to take more damage until we stop flashing, and then we can start taking damage again. So let's go ahead and dive right into that. First we're going to jump into our player health script. So this script is what manages our player's health, and it handles what happens when the player takes damage or dies. So in here, this is where we're going to add in a period of invulnerability after the player takes the damage, during which the player will flash to indicate that they can't be hurt. So the first thing that we're going to do is up at the top here, we're going to go ahead and add in the two serialized fields. The first one is going to be of type float, and it's going to be called invulnerability duration. And I'm going to set mine equal to 2f for now. And this is going to be the duration of invulnerability after the player takes damage. And then the next one, we're going to do another serialized field, and this one's also going to be a float, and I'm just going to call this one flash duration. And I'm going to set this one equal to 0.1f for now. And this is just going to be the duration of each flash. And next, what we're going to need is down here, we're also going to, or maybe down here, we're also going to need, just to keep the private and public ones separate, we're also going to need a bool, and I'm going to call this one is invulnerable, and I'm going to set that to false by default, and this is just going to be a flag to indicate if the player is currently invulnerable or not. And then here we're also going to need a reference to the sprite renderer component. So this is going to be a private sprite renderer, and I'm just going to call it sprite renderer. And that's going to be the reference to the player's sprite renderer. That way we can toggle it on and off to create the flashing. And then down here at the bottom, we're going to create a coroutine to handle the invulnerability and the flashing effect. So this is going to be a private IE numerator. And we will call this activate invulnerability. And inside of here, what we want to do is we want to set is invulnerable. We want to set that equal to true, because when we activate this, that's going to make us invulnerable. And then we're going to need a time here. And I'm just going to do a float, and I'm just going to call this elapsed. So the time that's elapsed since this got triggered. This will make sense after we do the next part. We're going to set up a while loop to make sure that this time is while this is less than the invulnerability duration, we're going to make the flash happen. And since it's at 0, it's always going to be less whenever this triggers. So it's going to create the start the flash. And then so down here, we'll want to do a while statement, or a while loop, I mean, and what we're going to say is while elapsed is less than the invulnerability duration. What we want to be doing is we want to do the sprite renderer dot enabled, and that's going to equal it's not enabled, so exclamation point sprite renderer dot enabled. So that's going to toggle that on and off. So it'll kind of create the little flashing effect. And then here we're going to do a yield return, and we're going to return a new, and we'll do wait for seconds for our flash duration seconds. So we're going to wait for that flash duration. And then we're going to say that the elapsed plus equals, and then the flash duration. So we're going to add the flash duration onto the elapsed time. And so then this will continue. It'll continue flashing until this number here finally reaches the invulnerability duration that we set. And then what we're going to want to do is sprite renderer dot enabled. We're going to want to set that back to true. because once we're done with all of this, we want to make sure that the sprite render is visible at the end. And then is invulnerable is going to be set to false, because we want to end that invulnerability period and the player is no longer invulnerable. And now up here in the take damage method, what we're going to want to do is up at the top, we're going to do an if statement, and we're going to say, we actually don't need all of this. So what we're actually going to do is we're going to say if the player is invulnerable, then we're simply going to return. Oops. Since the player is invulnerable, they're not going to actually take any damage, so we're just going to return out of this. And then down here, where we're checking if the current health is less than or equal to 0, and then we die, right outside of this, we're just going to add an else statement. And we're going to do the start coroutine, and this is where we will call our activate invulnerability coroutine that we just created. Like that. And then so after we take damage, if we're not dead, we will start flashing. So real quick, just to summarize this, what we've added so far, we did add the 2 serialized fields up here for the invulnerability duration and the flash duration. These are going to let us see or set how long the player is invulnerable and how fast the player flashes. We created the Boolean flag here for is invulnerable to keep track of whether the player is currently invulnerable or not. And then we set the reference for the sprite renderer here as well. And we're also going to need to set this. I forgot to do that. So down here, this is going to be a sprite renderer. And then that's going to equal our, oops, we don't need this game object, just get component sprite renderer, and that's going to get the sprite renderer component of the player. So then we did set this sprite renderer, and we're setting that up in awake, so we get that, get a reference to that right away. And then down in the take damage method, we're going to check if the player is invulnerable. If they are, we're going to skip the damage, so we're going to return. And if they're not, then down here, as long as they are not going to die, then we can start up the activate invulnerability coroutine that we set so that we start flashing. And once this is set up, we're going to change is invulnerable to true. We're going to set up that, create the timer here. So we're going to continue going through for the invulnerability duration and start flashing. And then at the end, we're going to set everything back to how it should be with the sprite renderer enabled and the is invulnerable set to false. So if we save that and jump back into our editor, now when the player takes damage, they should get a brief period where they can't be hurt again, and they're going to flash to indicate that state. So if we hit the enemy, you'll see that we're flashing. We went down to 2 health. I'll go over to this other one here, just do it again. We take 1 damage, but we're flashing again. So we are good. And if we go ahead and reset the game, again, we're starting flashing. While we're flashing, we're not taking any more damage. So this is working how we would expect. So this is not only going to make the game a little bit more forgiving, but also provide clear visual feedback for the player. But thank you guys for watching, and don't forget to like or subscribe. Thank you.